March 1st, 2013, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in Warwick, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For March 1st, 2013, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. CNN declares, cast your Oscars ballot. It makes as much difference as voting for president. Missouri legislature defines science as being made of faith to push intelligent design. Good call. Family Guy's Seth MacFarlane as Oscar host. What do you think this is, the Golden Globes? Lakers owner Jerry Buss is dead. Got it. Let's move on. Pistorius charged with murder. Where's Johnny Cochran when you need him? Papal immunity or impunity? Let God pick your rapist on ChristianMingle.com. Baby slapping gate. How do we know the baby slapped on the flight wasn't a terrorist? CNN declares Denver International Airport under siege by bunnies. Treasury Department says paper checks are too expensive. What about minting pennies and dollar bills? Pope Benedict XVI delivers his farewell address in Latin. Way to connect. Country music suicide. Mindy McCready. Recursion personified? Chicken and egg? Pope Benedict XVI arrives at his retirement castle by helicopter. With all his capes, juju sticks, invisible friends, and ruby slippers, why couldn't he just fly there himself? Cardinal Mahoney forgives accusers without having been cleared. Those are some big blue balls you got there, Cardinal. Translators finally finish working on Pope Benedict's farewell address and discover he capped it off with, "So long, suckers." Russian meteor. Now we can has a serious science and space program? Microsoft leverages the success of Windows 8 by replacing Hotmail with a Surface-ified web version of Outlook. Win! With all the financial wrangling going on in Washington, it can be a little tough to keep all the terminology straight. Fortunately, we have Paul Torville with his take on your money.
Deficit spending is sometimes hard for regular folks to understand because regular folks don't have unlimited access to credit. Regular folks have to think about a thing called their debt load ratio. This is the proportion of your disposable income committed to paying back debts. If your debt load ratio is too high, you can't borrow money. The federal government of the United States under the Reagan administration decides that deficit spending or borrowing to make up the difference between what they're spending and taking in, as a matter of course, is okay. It's not. That's the reason that the national debt is approaching $20 trillion. If you ran your finances that way, borrowing to cover, let's say, a quarter of your expenses every year, and only making minimum payments on the money you've already borrowed, you'd be in trouble with your creditors in about 5 years. We've been at it for 30. If the government's income doesn't cover its expenses, it needs to raise its income and or cut expenses to eliminate the deficit every year. If you borrow for real emergencies and disasters, that's one thing. But if you borrow for Twizzlers and movie tickets, you're an idiot. I'm Paul Torville, and this was your money.
Good to know. Stick around. Coming up next, you over here and you over there. Athletes in trouble and healthy Christian dating for nearly everyone.
It can be hard to think rationally when a loved one passes away. This can be especially true in the event of untimely death or when religious or cultural traditions demand quick interment of remains. Blue and Flatley Funeral Homes are here to ensure your needs are served in the most efficient and profitable way possible. At Blue and Flatley Funeral Homes, your money is very important to us, and we want to make sure we do everything you can afford to put your mind at ease. Blue and Flatley, profiting from the misery of others since 1883.
The Harlem Shake? In a move which rivals the stupid nonsense of Christian Trinitarian vicarious redemption, the two branches of our government, you have an opportunity to vote out of office for being that stupid, have set up a situation where the government borrowed money to continue an unsustainable track of spending while cutting taxes, then bitching about spending being out of control and taxes being too high, and then when the government's fiscal irresponsibility comes to an artificially induced head, the president and Congress blame each other for putting us all in this mess, when in fact, it's the fault of all of them. And all of us. But that's okay. The 4-day work weeks and 20% pay cuts to federal employees, to say nothing of the cuts to federal benefits and contracts, won't impact the salaries of senators, representatives, the president, the vice president, or the Supreme Court justices. Thank goodness their pay is safe, because they don't have any other income streams. Before we move on to this week's commentaries, here are some of the letters we received from you, our viewers, regarding the last opposing viewpoints, which dealt with Beyonce Knowles getting caught lip-syncing at President Obama's second inaugural. Here is what you thought. The president should not be engaging in obvious photo ops like sitting behind Beyonce while she's singing the national anthem. What a hanger-on! Doesn't he have any talents or accomplishments of his own? If he really wants to impress us, why doesn't he audition for America's Got Talent? Brittany D., Pasadena, California. More commie Hollywood fakery. Arnold would never get caught in such obvious dishonesty. Bring back good old-fashioned conservative Christian American family values and end all the deception. I, Ron Ickey, White Man, Indiana. P.S. Can't wait for Star Wars Episode 7. You still pay for music? What year do you think this is? Everybody knows musicians survive on the love and adoration of their fans, and fickle, constantly shifting tastes of those fans have no impact on the output or artistic integrity of musicians. They're artists. They reject money on principle. Liberty MP III, Greenwich Village, New York. So that makes this the 4th time he's been inaugurated. Geez, get it right. George B., Texas. And now, on to Pig and Sheep. Double amputee Olympic medalist Oscar Pistorius has been charged with murder. Just the latest in a long list of professional athletes who were lionized, even deified for their athletic prowess, only to go out and get into trouble. Big trouble. Are athletes worthy of the praise heaped upon them, or are they just flawed humans, like the rest of us? Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
Athletes need our adoration, just like God does. If we don't love athletes, how will they throw balls and run and pedal and swim so that we can feel like we've achieved something great by living vicariously through them? Athletes don't really do bad things. It's just the haters and the lamestream media trying to bring them down. Professional athletes have nothing in or about them that makes them intrinsically better people than any of the rest of us. The only thing about athletes is their high profile. Like actors, singers, politicians, and other people thrust into high-profile public lives, often with lots of money and popularity. These more or less instantly famous individuals are surrounded by people looking for favors and handouts, as well as those seeking to profit from an association with them, no matter how brief or insignificant. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. That's a lot of pressure to be under, and the rapid onset of the money and the fame can often cause people to lose perspective and give in to urges that are out of reach to people with ordinary incomes and relationships. It's easy to believe your own press when nobody has the nerve to tell you you're mortal, in many cases because they have so much riding on your success. I'm not saying this excuses Pistorius or anyone else. If they're guilty, I'm saying we may all be responsible to some extent for sowing and feeding the delusion that these superstars are something more than the rest of us.
That's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. Neil Clark Warren. Wrongly, maybe? The co-founder of the thinly veiled anti-gay, anti-atheist, pro-Christian online dating site eHarmony and its court-ordered LGBT-oriented spin-off Compatible Partners has announced that debating over marriage equality is bad for eHarmony. Gee, what a shame. eHarmony is such an easy site to use and produces such immediate positive results at a truly modest cost that it's hard to believe that something as trivial as treating people as proximate equals, irrespective of their gender identity, sexual orientation, or religion, could trip up such a magnanimous concern as eHarmony. Wait. No. eHarmony is cumbersome, a huge time sink, obscenely expensive given the quality of service and results, and is founded on a pro-Christian mandate which makes discrimination against members of the LGBT and non-believing communities essentially a foregone conclusion. But that's okay. It seems as though Dr. Warren is convinced that in 5 to 15 years the whole marriage equality thing won't be an issue anymore, at least according to an interview he did with Yahoo Finance. Of course, he didn't go into a lot of detail as to whether he thinks that will be because marriage equality will be realized in that time frame and the controversy will die, or because he thinks something like a constitutional amendment will shut the door on marriage equality more or less permanently, or what his preference would be in that area. Stay tuned, still to come. The first artificial human. You can almost feel the debris in your lap. And talk about a series finale.
Soot. You've been hearing a lot of not-so-nice things about soot. Mostly from tree-hugging, dirt-worshipping pansy liberals and people who think breathing is important. They will talk the ears off your head, droning on and on about wind and solar and renewable energy. What they don't tell you is that soot built America. Our modern post-industrial society owes everything to soot. If it wasn't for coal-fired power and diesel-powered transportation, America would grind to a halt. That's a fact. And as long as we have anything to say about it, and as long as there's profit to be made in government subsidies on soot, we're going to do everything we can to keep it that way. We're America's soot industry. Profitable, ugly, traditional, American.
Nicki Minaj? And now here's Moose Weintraub with the Sports Half Minute.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute. It's a whole half minute of sports. 30 seconds of sports. Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
This is your Sports Half Minute. I'm Moose Weintraub. Fans at this year's Daytona 500 got a rare opportunity to catch souvenirs of the race, such as wheels, tires, and a rare NASCAR racing engine.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
Thanks, Moose. Always a great report from Moose. Dennis Rodman and the Harlem Globetrotters visited North Korea. They were on a diplomatic mission. Of course, if it was a consular ship, where was the ambassador? Before returning to the U.S., Rodman gave a press conference informing us that Kim Jong-un, the current leader of North Korea, is honest, an awesome kid, and a friend for life. Perhaps we should have a national day of watching The Manchurian Candidate before letting Rodman through customs. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? The days of likening Pope Benedict XVI to Emperor Palpatine are now behind us. With the retirement of Joseph Ratzinger and his fire engine red FM pumps, here's hoping the conclave of cardinals will pick someone like, say, Darth Tyrannus. I think we've really hit on something here with the whole Sith Lord as Pope thing. Really, it would be excruciatingly boring and totally in character for the conclave to elect yet another elderly, square, white, Western European male virgin to ride the obviously ostentatious golden papal throne into the new Dark Ages. Maybe they'll surprise us and elect a 30-year-old Brazilian lesbian. Yeah, I'm not banking on that. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, you can submit your story tips online at newsundies.com. NewsUndies is a weekly show. We'll be back on Friday, March 8th with fresh undies. For real this time. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, ignore us on MySpace, tell your friends, and buy NewsUndies Kitsch. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at NewsUndies, until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be made entirely of wood.
There's a lot of pressure to be under. That's a lot of pressure to be under. Damn it all.
Oscar Pistorius has been charged with murderer. Murderer?
If you debt roll,
Like actors, singers,
regular folks don't have unlimited
I'm saying we may all be.
Who writes this?
You wrote this, didn't you? Bastard.